Welcome to Take Me With You, Episode 4. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. Instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we are talking to Serena. Serena lives in the Seattle area and works at a university, and she's traveled to 24 countries, and so clearly she has the travel bug, and she's here to chat with us today. Welcome, Serena.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello. It's great to be here.
Yay, thanks for joining us. Oh my goodness, you've done a lot of traveling. That's so fun. Did that start when you were pretty young?
No, my first trip was when I was 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went to the Dominican Republic, and then I had one trip a couple years later with a church group to Russia. And then I really didn't travel again for probably another 8 years.
Oh, my goodness.
When I went abroad in 2007 with family to Italy, that was the first time I went on a trip that wasn't church or mission related. And it opened up this whole world of the fun of travel.
Oh, cool.
So from that point onward, I was like, I want to do this every year. So I've traveled internationally every year since 2007.
Oh, how fun. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're both jealous over here.
Oh, cool. Yay. Well, we're so excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, so we'll start with just a couple of kind of intro questions, and then we'll get into the trip that you want to talk about today. So first of all, why do you travel? What is it about travel that you really like and enjoy?
Well, first off, it's just really fun. I mean, it's great to get away and do something different that's out of your normal routine. But I also really love learning about other people, their cultures, what it's like to live in some of these cities that have been around so much longer than Seattle has. I mean, the buildings just look different. The transportation is different. That's really fun to me. It's really helpful to broaden my worldview and understand, not that I'm too much into world politics, but like have a better understanding of what's going on in the world. And it also helps increase my compassion for other people when my worldview isn't so narrow to be just myself as an American, but kind of have the perspective of what it might be like living somewhere else.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it is a good answer. I guess we'll let you continue then. So you
Okay,
pass the test.
all right.
Yeah, so the next question is, what type of traveler are you? Like, how would you describe your travel style, if you will?
Yeah. I would say I'm kind of an interesting mix of a person who really needs their comfort and security, and then also someone who wants to try new things. So for an example, like I am somebody who absolutely needs to know where they're sleeping and that I can get at least one meal a day. So I usually plan to either stay at a hotel that provides breakfast, or I'll do an Airbnb and know where the grocery store is and that I'm confident I can figure out how to purchase things at that store. Because I always tell myself, if all else fails, I can be safe at this place and I will eat once a day, and I'll be okay. Now, it's never happened that I've never been able to do or been stuck doing just that, So that's like my little security blanket. But I definitely, when I'm traveling, I'm up for trying new things. So like when we get up in the morning, it's like, okay, what are we going to do today? And let's do something new and different. And what can we see? And what can we learn? And what can we experience? I would say I'm kind of middle of the road in terms of budget. I definitely do not go bare bones, but have to live my life here too. So we do not go all out. And I kind of tend to plan on the fly. Like I talked about, I plan ahead for where I'm going to sleep and all of my transportation, but it's pretty rare that I'm going to plan the actual activities I do during the day unless it requires a ticket or something like that.
So when you say that you don't plan the activities of the day, does that mean like you don't do any research before you go to the cities and you just kind of figure it out while you're there? Or do you do any pre-research but not actually set your schedule?
The latter, definitely the latter. I definitely, I'm big into guidebooks. Two specifically, I have been a Rick Steves fanatic for years. Yes.
Yep.
I have done most of my travel to Europe. And so, I mean, it's so easy with those to be able to watch the video episodes ahead of time, read the guidebooks. The guidebooks are great to go. And then recently, I've been introduced to the Lonely Planet guidebooks. And we really enjoy those. My husband and I, because it seems it's a little more tailored to people around our age. It seems like it'd be great for people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who maybe don't want to just do museums the entire trip.
Hooray!
Yes, exactly. So they have lots of fun tips and suggestions, and they're also small guidebooks, so they're easy to take with you. So yeah, I will definitely read ahead. I flag things that I'm interested in doing. I try to make note about days and times that things are open and closed. But yeah, I definitely do not have like the spreadsheet of at 7 a.m. we're doing this, and then at 8:30 we're doing this. So yeah, it is vacation after all. So it's nice to be able to kind of go with how you're feeling in the day.
That's a good way of putting it, that it is vacation.
Yes. Yes. It's not just something to be accomplished. We are here to relax and enjoy. So
Nice. Okay, one more question, and then we'll dive into your travel story. What is your number one travel tip that you would put out there for all of our listeners?
I have to take this one from Rick Steves as well. It is to pack light and right.
Yes!
I am a huge proponent of traveling with only a backpack. So I have a carry-on sized backpack. So it is the maximum that will fit in the overhead bin. I think that's like 22 by 19 by 14, something like that.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah. And so usually I'm gone for 2 to 3 weeks. That's all I'll take, plus my little purse that's your personal item, or a little day bag or whatever you want to take with you. And that's what I do, and that works for me. You are re-wearing clothes, and you do wash things in the sink at the hotel or the Airbnb. But the fact that you only are hauling around, 12 to 15 pounds and don't have to drag luggage and don't have to wait at the airport for things to come in is just really huge. And it makes it easier to get to and from places. A lot of places in Europe, you're up on the 4th or 5th floor climbing stairs. You don't want to be dragging your giant rolly bag up the stairs.
Yeah. So if someone were to hear that tip and be like, I can never do that, how would you respond to that?
Ooh.
It does take some thinking and planning ahead, and I definitely do strategize my outfits and coordinate things that go together. You have to think very carefully about the shoes that you're going to bring. Definitely look for tips on Google. It is doable for sure.
Awesome. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, do you tend to hop around when you're traveling, or do you kind of like find a city and stay put there?
I think when I get somewhere, I'm like, I want to try to see as much as possible. So I have this tendency to try to go to many cities. The trips that I have gone to a lot of cities, like changing cities every other day or every 3 days, tend to wear me out more than when I stay longer in a city. So this most recent trip, which we'll get to here in a second, one of the destinations, we were there for 6 full days.
Wow.
And that was so
Nice.
great because we got to really enjoy time there. I took a trip a couple of years ago with a friend where we changed cities pretty much every other day. We got to see a lot of stuff, but we also did some things like sleeping on the overnight train, which was not relaxing. That was not restful. And when you have to pack up and change locations every other day, it can be kind of draining. So I think people have got to figure out what works for them. And sometimes having a mix of both is good. There was one spot on this most recent trip, we only stayed 1 night, but that was no big deal because we'd had 3 nights previously in one location. And then, like I mentioned, 6 nights upcoming. So mix and match.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, all the more reason to pack light, though, if you're kind of hopping around and not just like having one hotel the whole time or something. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool. Well, we would love to hear about this trip that you want to share with us. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So the trip that I took most recently with my husband was just back here in August of this year. We went to Helsinki, Finland, Tallinn, Estonia, and Paris, France. So we were in Helsinki for 3 days, Tallinn, Estonia for 1 day, just the overnight. And then we went to Paris and we were there for 6 full days. And it was amazing. It was so great.
So being as well traveled as you are, how many of those places had you been before?
I had just been to Paris. I was in Paris in 2010 with a group of friends. There were 4 of us girls that were there. I had not been to Helsinki or Tallinn before. Those 2 destinations were my husband's pick. Being that we were traveling in August, we were trying to stay farther north for cooler weather, which did not happen. It was a noble attempt on our part. But yeah, so he had picked those locations, and I was kind of neutral about it, but ended up loving both locations. They were really great.
So tell us a little bit more about Helsinki and Tallinn. I've never been to either of those places.
Yeah, neither have I.
Sure. So we started in Helsinki, which is in Finland. Finland, if you think about it, is the third. It's the one on the east of the 3 kind of, what do you call those? Peninsulas there up in Scandinavia. It is right next to Russia. It definitely has kind of an interesting history, which I don't remember all the details of, with Russia through the World Wars and kind of their relationship with the leaders there. The buildings, they've done a lot of building in the 1800s. So of European cities, it's actually newer.
Interesting.
It's a port city, so there are a lot of boats, obviously ships, a lot of freighters that go back and forth. Cruise travel is really popular there in the Baltic Sea, which is what their port is on. It's easy to go from Oslo and Stockholm and Helsinki around to St. Petersburg is the nearest Russian city. And then Tallinn in Estonia is straight south of Helsinki. And that's about a 2-hour crossing to get between them on the ferry, which is how we got there. But Helsinki, to talk a little bit more about that city, we really enjoyed our time there. There are lots of beautiful buildings. It obviously is designed to be cold. It snows a lot in the winter. It's usually very chilly. So there were several places where they're like, here's how you can get between buildings without going outside and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
They do have a pretty good tram system, which we used to get around the city. They also have a smartphone app for the tickets for the tram, which I love. So we downloaded that when we got there. We just got I think it was a 48-hour pass that we needed, and you just had that with you. And if you got stopped by the conductor, you just show them your ticket and be good to go. Nice. We stayed, I would say, pretty close to the downtown Old Town core. A lot of things were pretty walkable. Using the tram, because it did end up being warmer than we expected, was really helpful to just shave off time. And I think our 2-day pass was not a ridiculous amount of money. It was probably 11 euros a person or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. And so when you have something like that, it makes it easy to, A, save time, and B, conserve energy. If you just take the tram 3 or 4 stops, you've saved yourself 10 minutes of walking and also some time of being out in the elements. So that was good. Some of the highlights in Helsinki were definitely the cathedrals. There are 4 major churches there that we went to visit. There's a church called the Church in the Rock, which is literally built into the side of the hill.
Wow.
And on the interior of the church, it's all stone and rock, and it is really cool.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing your pictures from that. Those
We're going to have to post some of that on our Instagram. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Yeah, it has it also has like a glass top, which is pretty cool as it's peeking out of the rock there. The funniest thing about visiting that church was you're supposed to be quiet in churches, and they have signs that say silence, please. Apparently this was lost on about 75% of the tourists that were visiting there. So every 5 minutes you'd hear this announcement, silence, please.
Oh my gosh.
Just like, oh my word, people. How do you
kind of ruins the mood, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, this really relax and enjoy, and so that was, other than that was a fun visit. There's a Lutheran cathedral there that's just out of the harbor, and it's up on top of the hill. And it's, if you see pictures of the city, it's often one of the things that is showcased. There are a lot of steps that go up to it. The church itself, kind of in fitting with Lutheran tradition, is kind of plain and basic, but it is very beautiful and really picturesque, especially on the outside. And that was fun to see. And then across from it on the other hill was the Russian Orthodox Cathedral. Definitely a big contrast in terms of style.
Wow.
Yeah. If you guys have ever seen pictures or been in an Orthodox cathedral, you probably know they're really ornate and a lot of icons and imagery and that sort of stuff. So really vastly different experience. But that was beautiful to see. And then the last one that we saw was kind of right down in the church square, or the main square rather. And it was called Campi Chapel. And that one is just a round chapel. It kind of looks like the hull of a boat. Unlike the other three, it does not currently host a church congregation. It's just a small chapel, and there are probably 30 seats for 30 people in there. And it, when it's open, is sponsored by, I want to think of the name of the group, but essentially it would be like a health and human services organization in Helsinki. So when you go in there, you can also get help for basic needs. If you're having issues with health or homelessness or illness or things like that, there are volunteers there that are able to talk with you. So I thought that was kind of cool, because that's something churches should be about, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so
that's very cool.
Yeah. So those were some of the, I think the churches were kind of some of the main highlights for us in Helsinki.
So I'm curious with the location. So it's farther north, like you said, but it also borders Russia, which most of it is in Asia, but there's that portion of it that's in Europe. So it kind of has that more Eastern European feel. How would you describe sort of the feeling of the city compared to other European cities you've been to? And I'm also curious about the makeup of the tourists that were there, like the other travelers that you ran into. Was it similar to other European cities, or was it different because it's in such a different part of Europe?
That is a great question. I would say that I did not feel a lot of Russian influence in terms of the architecture. I think there is some, but it seems more influenced by kind of that Scandinavian or Nordic simplicity. So a lot of the buildings, I would say, lean more toward that than kind of that Soviet look that some of the buildings in Russia have. A lot of them have. In tours of tourists, I would say the makeup is pretty similar. We were surprised the number of tourist groups that we saw that were from Asia. I'm not sure where, but there were definitely a lot of tour groups, which is common to see throughout Europe. And there were definitely people from Europe that were traveling there as well. A few from the US, probably a few from Canada. So I would say it's a fairly typical mix. I think one of the nice things about Finland is that English is it's not officially their second language, but most of them use it, and it was really easy for us to get around.
Oh, very cool.
And I think for a lot of the world, that is kind of their second language, so it's kind of default of like, I'm pretty sure you're not from here, so let's try English. So that worked out pretty well for us.
Very cool. What was the food like there? That's all I want to hear about.
No, and the two of you, you're both foodies, so
yes.
I'll just sit back for the next 45 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, no, I am definitely a foodie as well. I love to learn about a culture through their food. Like any city, they have foods of all types, and so there was one day that we ended up eating in a Mexican restaurant, and that's all fine. I would say that their cuisine is sort of what you would think of as meat and potatoes. Okay. So they have a lot of kind of starchy dishes, and then the meat. Berries are something that are very common there. So like one
I
evening,
can get behind that.
yeah, it's good stuff. One evening we went out to a pretty nice dinner, and I ended up having pork loin with roasted artichoke puree. And then Tom had reindeer, which is common.
Wow.
Yeah. So he really enjoyed that. And it came with a berry sauce of some sort that was really good.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun. That's an interesting combo.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember. I think lingonberries and cloudberries. There were a lot of blueberries, things like that. So yeah, it was really good. They're coming up into the world of like fine dining for sure. And so this restaurant that we went to was absolutely fine dining, and it was beautiful presentation. And we did the 4-course tasting menu, which had this starter, a lot of seafood. So both of our starters were salmon.
Yeah.
So I had gravlax, and he had a smoked salmon soup for our starter. And then, like I said, we had the main course of the meat, and then they did a cheese course, and then locally inspired desserts. Like I had a little lemon meringue tart, and he had a chocolate and strawberry parfait. Yeah, it was just.
I'm interested again once we start talking about dessert.
Yeah, exactly. The hotel that we stayed at, like I said, having one meal a day is very important to me. So they had provided breakfast.
Nice.
And it was huge. Like I could not believe the amount of food that they had for breakfast. And I think some of it is that they were trying to cater to a variety of people.
Okay.
But they had Finnish pancakes, which were probably maybe 2 inches in diameter, and a little bit thicker. They had scrambled eggs. They had roasted cauliflower and broccoli. This is not a typical American breakfast, but why not? They had a whole assortment of sliced meats and cheeses. They had pickled fish, which I tried but decided was really not my cup of tea.
Good for you for trying, though. That's good.
Oh my gosh. They had, what else did they have? Cereals, yogurt, a few other unique things. Oh, some potato dishes. And they had little like shooters of blueberry juice, which was kind of funny, but it was like thick. It was almost like
antioxidants in, I guess.
It was almost like a syrup, though. So the first day I had it, and I was like, was I supposed to drink that, or was that for my pancake? But I kind of watched other people, and other people were shooting
taking blueberry shots.
Like,
okay.
Have
was
the blueberry.
It sweet like a syrup, or was it just like pureed blueberries or blueberry juice?
Yeah, I would say it was just like thickened blueberry juice. It was not sweetened, so it's fairly tart, but not like lemon tart. Yeah. It was definitely palatable. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So no, we had fun adventures with the food. It was great. I got to look forward to breakfast every morning.
Nice. Oh, so fun.
Figure out what random things I was going to eat today.
What's the coffee situation there? This is what else I need to know.
They definitely had coffee. So I'm not a coffee drinker, though I do have. Yes, I tend to have a little bit of espresso when I travel. I don't know why. I think I feel like it's a cultural thing to do. So, like, I would have. They had a little coffee machine that would give you a single shot of espresso, which I would put sugar in. And that would be all I would have. But they also had just regular brewed coffee. I think Tom was having cappuccinos. It was the, typical coffee making machine like you would see, where you pick what the options were.
Very cool. All right. Well, should we move on to your next location?
Sure. Yeah. So after we spent a few days in Helsinki, we took the ferry over to Tallinn, Estonia. So if you're from Washington, you're probably thinking about the Washington state ferries that we have, which are like, they hold, 150 cars and probably a couple hundred passengers. They're open-ended. So the ferries in the Baltic are very much like cruise ships, except they also hold cars.
Huh.
So if you think about a large, like Holland America or Princess boat, and then the bottom level, like it would probably be 2 or 3 stories worth, holds cars. So it will hold 600 cars. And then the top decks are for passengers, and they can hold up to 2,000 passengers. So it's definitely a huge boat, which was kind of surprising to both of us, but I guess they need that size and stability to cross the Baltic Sea. They have 3 ferry companies that go back and forth between Helsinki and Tallinn, and they each run about 4 boats a day. So apparently it's a very popular crossing. Our boat was surprisingly full for a Sunday morning. I think people from Helsinki go there for a weekend or just for the day. Things like food and alcohol are cheaper over in Estonia, so I think sometimes that people will kind of go for their little getaway over there for the day and then come back to Helsinki. So we took the ferry over on Sunday morning and got into Tallinn about noon. We walked everywhere in Tallinn. We only used public transportation when we had to go to the airport at the end of our trip. So we walked probably 15 minutes from the harbor up into Old Town where we were staying. Old Town is just this cute, quaint, little, almost medieval style city with, cobblestone streets and just like these classic old buildings and towers. And they have a square where there's, how big do I think that is? Probably the equivalent of a city block that's just open in cobblestone with buildings surrounding it. So like the city hall is at one end, there are restaurants at the other end, there are shops and all of this stuff. So it's definitely the place where people would have congregated. Now it's where the tourists congregate to look at all the buildings and take photos and decide which overpriced restaurant they want to eat at for lunch, that sort of thing.
Okay.
What was kind of funny about Tallinn is definitely a cruise ship destination. So a lot of the week-long cruises in the Baltic will stop there for the day. So it was really busy until about 4 p.m. when everyone goes back to their cruise ship. So we spent a few hours walking around and they're like bumping elbows with all of these tour groups where everyone has a headset on and, they're following the guy with the umbrella, you know what I'm talking about. We try to avoid being, nearby those people. But then, like I said, about 4 o'clock or somewhere between 4 and 5, it would really start to quiet down. And we ended up having a lovely dinner at a cute restaurant on a side street. And we walked around after dinner, kind of back up on the hill, and we could see views of the harbor and the rest of the city. And it was just so nice and calm and peaceful at that point, which was really great. Oh, cool. So, the city is definitely very walkable. I think we were glad that we spent really only 24 hours there because it is small enough. There are not a ton of activities in Old Town. It's a lot of just being able to see the buildings and then enjoying a couple of meals. Estonia is highly influenced by Russian culture. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier in relation to Finland. But Estonia was actually overtaken by the USSR during, I think it would have been during World War II. And they were occupied by them for many years. And there are about 40% of their population is actually displaced Russian people who live in Estonia. And so they have a mix of some people speak Estonian, some people speak Russian. So again, where English comes in handy, most people then also speak English and use that to communicate. So the first day we were there for lunch, we went to this Russian restaurant, which was kind of fun for me because I've been to Russia before, so it was a little bit nostalgic to kind of have that again and share that experience with Tom. I would say the cuisine in Estonia is probably very similar to what we were just talking about. A lot of meat and potatoes, that sort of thing. So when we went to dinner that night, again, Tom is into trying new things, which I really appreciate. So he had game cutlet, which turned out to be venison. I had duck. I love duck, which was great. so again, with kind of the fruit and that sort of things, we had, for our starter, we had a quail pate that had a cherry jelly and a quince sauce, and quince is also a fruit. My duck came with a poached pear and a red wine cherry sauce, which was quite
I'm into
nice.
that.
Oh, yeah,
Poached
it was
pears
really
are so
good. Yeah, and I was surprised to have it with the main course. I've always had it with a dessert,
Yeah,
but
me
it
too.
went really well with the duck. Yeah, it was really good. And we had blackcurrant sorbet for dessert.
Ooh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Cheryl's in again.
Yes,
My microphone is going to get wet from all my drool, but other than that, we're doing great. So.
Yeah, it was really fun. And this was just a place that we stumbled upon, and it was a super cute place. They had a hilarious display in the window of taxidermied animals that were sitting at a table eating their meal, which was pretty funny.
Do you have photos of this?
I do have a photo of that.
Good.
Yeah.
Serena showed it to me earlier. It's pretty amazing.
I'm so excited.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. There's like I'm looking at it now. There's like a wolf and maybe a boar and a couple of birds that are eating food, and there's like an owl off to the side.
Oh my goodness.
And they're in this like rustic lodge setting. I don't know how I didn't notice it walking into the restaurant. Apparently Tom did, but like it is plain as day when you're walking out because you have to like face it as you're headed to the door.
Funny.
So that was so hilarious. Yeah, it was pretty good.
So related to this restaurant and then broader, kind of when you were talking about how you do a lot of kind of figuring things out while you're there, not really planning things, super rigidly when you travel. Do you approach food, except for like that one meal, which is usually breakfast, sort of the same way? You just kind of walk around and see what restaurants appeal to you? Do you check on in your travel books? Do you look stuff up online? Like, how do you decide where to eat?
Yeah.
Or do you only eat in restaurants that have taxidermy?
Right. I think I would have only eaten one meal that trip if that was the case. I would say for lunch when we're out and about, we usually tend to just walk around the area we're in, particularly if we're in a bigger city. We'll just kind of walk around a little bit until we find something that we feel like is going to meet our needs. For dinner in the evening, it's kind of a mix. Sometimes we'll just go walk around. Other times we'll take a recommendation either from the guidebook, or we'll use either Yelp or look it up on Google and see what some of the options are. Yeah, sometimes it can be really overwhelming. It just depends on the city, I think. Sometimes it seems like there are a ton of amazing options, and how can you pick between it? And other times it's like, oh, am I going to keep having this same meal over and over again, but at a different restaurant? So, yeah. In this place in Estonia that we went to called The Farm, very appropriate for the taxidermy.
Yes.
Tom had found that on Google, and essentially he was just looking for restaurants that were close to where we were staying, and it was 2 blocks away, and it got great reviews, and we decided to go for it.
Do you do any food research in advance? Like, do you really try to make sure, like, okay, this place is known for this thing, so I, like, need to make sure I have it? Or is it just kind of like, we'll see what I end up eating? Or how does that go?
I would say we do a little bit of research.
Okay.
Before we went to Helsinki, Tom said very specifically that he wanted to try reindeer. I was kind of neutral on it. I'm like, okay, if it comes up, I will eat it. If it doesn't go well. And when we got to Paris, which was our next destination, I mean, there were a few things that I'm very much like, I need to have macaroons, I need to have crepes, I need to, some of this sort of stuff. I don't usually... It's pretty rare that I will say I need to have a particular dish at a particular restaurant, like that sort of thing. It's usually just that I want to try this one thing in this place, or I know that they eat a lot of it, so I should probably also try it out.
Check it out, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And then did you fly out of Tallinn then?
We did, yeah. So we left, we came in on Sunday, we left Monday afternoon. The Tallinn airport is pretty small, but it is so nice.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I would fly in and out of that airport anytime. So they probably only have 12 gates. Each gate seems to be sponsored by a business. So one of the gates next to us was sponsored by the local gym, and they had fitness equipment at the gate, which was kind of hilarious.
What?
That you could just use.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just get you a little workout in then.
No, I'm not sure I would work out in my travel clothes, but it's great that you could if you wanted to. Most people I saw there, well, I should say there was a group of probably 40 to 50 high school students that were traveling back to Paris. So they were on our flight. They were very loud and rowdy. They seemed to be the ones the most excited about the gym equipment. They were all in that area trying everything out, which was kind of funny. Let me think. Another one of the gates, was sponsored by one of the cruise lines. So they had a lot of, information about taking a Caro line and where you can go and all of this stuff. There was a gate that had a children's play area, which is, I'm sure, great for families, things like that.
That's great.
So, yeah. So it was a great little airport. We flew out of Tallinn, and we flew into Paris. We flew into Charles de Gaulle. Which there are two main airports in Paris. One is Orly, which is kind of southwest of the city a little bit, and then Charles de Gaulle, or Charles de Gaulle, if you have your French accent.
Oh, very nice. Impressive.
Which I do not do real well. Is kind of north and east of the city. It takes about 45 minutes to get into the main core of downtown Paris from the airport. We landed probably around 6 p.m. That airport is huge, so even just getting out of the airport and on to the train into the city took a lot of effort. But then the train dropped us off probably about 4 or 5 blocks from the hotel we were staying at. You can also use your train ticket to ride on the metro, so we were able to go an additional stop to save us a little bit of a walk on the metro to get to our hotel.
Nice.
So we got checked in there on a Monday evening, and there we stayed until the following Monday when we flew home.
Wow, that's so long.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It was really great. I'm not sure I've ever stayed that long in one city when traveling internationally. Like I said before, I'd been to Paris before, and I was a little nervous that maybe we had booked too much time there, but it turned out to be really great, partially because of the heat. We were able to go much slower. The first day that we were there, it was 97.
Oh, gosh.
Fahrenheit, which is roughly, what was that,
Ryan's
35
pretty jealous
Celsius.
right now. He loves that hot weather. So.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how much was your hotel air conditioned?
Yes, thank God.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's good.
Wow.
Yes.
Because a lot of places in Europe aren't.
No.
Yes. So I would say that was another travel priority, especially because of the time of year. My husband, like Ryan, is also a lesser fan of the warm weather. So that was kind of an important thing for us to be able to literally chill out in the evening and kind of reset. So, yeah. Oh, yes. But during the days, it was really helpful because we were able to go a little bit slower to have all of that time and kind of deal with the heat. And we kind of just took each day by day, and tried to plan our activities based on how we felt and what the weather was like, which was kind of, like I said, it was 97 the first day we were there, but about 3 days later, it was rainy and 70 and kind of overcast. And so it kind of mixed around a little bit. So we tried to plan our activities based on what was happening. Yeah.
What were the highlights?
I'm kind of a sucker for churches, which you may have figured out based on our Helsinki destination. Our hotel was just a couple of blocks away from Notre Dame. And
nice.
I loved, we only went in it once. We walked by it quite a few times. And it is just so majestic and so beautiful to look at all that Gothic architecture. And I had not that long ago seen the musical The Hunchback of Notre Dame at our local Broadway touring theater here. And so it was really fun to actually look at the cathedral and think about that story and then also about some of the history related to that time period. So we love Notre Dame. Sacre Coeur, which is another church church that's up on the hill in the neighborhood Montmartre. We went there, and I just love that. So beautiful.
Because that kind of looks down over Paris, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of in a portion of the city where, like I said, it's up on a hill, but it also gives you a good view of almost everything else that you would want to see in Paris. So, like, you can see Notre Dame there, the Pompidou. You can see kind of where the Louvre is. You can see the Eiffel Tower, of course. I think you could probably pick out the Arc de Triomphe. I'm trying to remember. It was a little bit gray and overcast the day that we ended up being there, so we couldn't quite see as far as we wanted. Like, I have a photo of, like, the classic view from the steps, and it's a lot of gray haze and, like, pokey little buildings, but that's all right. Not everything can be sunny and perfect all the time.
Not everything can be 96 degrees.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yes, right. Exactly. So when we visited Sacre Coeur, actually we found this in a lot of places. They do security checks when you go into these buildings, which kind of surprised me.
Really?
And so it was really common for us to have to wait in line to go through a metal detector and have our bags peeked at. They were very efficient about it, and I think that they must kind of have a good sense of what they're on the lookout for. So luckily it's not quite like the airport where it takes forever. It was very efficient, but yeah. I mean, I just never think about having to go through security to go inside a church.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Yeah, we did. Sainte-Chapelle is another church there that's really neat. So Sainte-Chapelle is probably 3 blocks away from Notre Dame. It's on this little island that's one of the original islands of the city. And the outside is nothing that spectacular, but they have amazing stained glass. And the interior is also...
I didn't go in there. Now I feel like I'm missing out. Better go back to Paris.
Yes. No, you have to go in there.
They didn't let us all the way in. Half of my group when I was there went in, and I was part of the group that didn't. So
why?
What?
It was complicated. But so tell us about what we missed.
I know we missed the stained glass. Tell us all about it.
You did. That's so sad. Yeah. So Sainte-Chapelle is just amazing. So the walls, for one, are hand painted, and they're all very detailed. I don't know how they do all that or did all that. Like, it makes more sense to me now with modern technology. Like, you could get the genie lift and go up high, but I'm sure when they originally did it, they were probably up on ladders or scaffolding or these sorts of things. So yeah, it's just so detailed inside. And then the stained glass is just incredible. It's so detailed, and they're working right now on restoring it. And
okay.
They showed a little video on how they take out like small sections and take it to a workshop where they do all this detailed cleaning process with it, which is just, what a labor of love for them to do that, for sure. But yeah, it's probably... How big do I think it is? It's not huge inside at all. It's probably, 20 feet wide by 80 feet long or something like that. So the interior is not gigantic, but then it's much taller than it is long. And so it's almost hard inside to see the stained glass because you're like craning your neck, just staring up, looking at it.
Interesting.
They do have cards when you go in that will give the details about what the story is in each of the stained glass. And it's every biblical story you can imagine laid out in colorful glass. It's just beautiful. It's really worth the climb, the 2-flight climb up a tiny spiral staircase to go see it.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you find any little like hidden gems in Paris that you would recommend that are maybe like not kind of the main things on the list that we would all know about?
Yeah, that is a great question. Well, probably one that isn't as common. So I talked about the island that Notre Dame is on. There's also a smaller island in the middle of the Seine that's right next to Notre Dame, and it's St. Louis. And it has a lot of cute little shops and restaurants, and it's only 3 blocks wide by probably 10 blocks long. It's fun to just go stroll and look and see things there. This time around, we also went to visit the Rodin Museum. So Rodin was a sculptor, so You would probably know him from The Thinker, the popular sculpture of the man in the thinking pose. And that was just really tranquil and peaceful and very different from most art museums.
Is it out of town, or is it kind of in the main city area?
It's still in the main city area.
Okay.
It's over by Les Invalides, the old hospital. And so it's kind of over by the Eiffel Tower. And it's in that quarter of the city. And it's a garden outside this mansion. It's just really a peaceful visit, which we really enjoyed. I'm trying to think what else that we just loved and did. I mean, just walking around and enjoying all the architecture for me I just love that, stroll around for a while, stop at a cafe, stroll around some more, stumble upon another church, go see it.
So did you stay in Paris for the 6 days, or did you do any day trips anywhere?
We did do a day trip. So we went out to the city called Chartres, so Chartres. Again, my French pronunciation is a little lacking here, but so Chartres is kind of a more small town French city, which was great to kind of get a different sense of something other than Paris. There were, I think the main thing about Chartres is their cathedral, which is amazing. We happened to be there on Friday, which is the only day that you can walk the labyrinth. So the floor of the cathedral has this path in it in stone, and it essentially looks like a maze, but it's a maze where you can't get lost. There's only one path in and one path out, and it's continuous. And the purpose of the labyrinth is for meditation and what's the word here?
Contemplation.
There we go. Thank you. So, yes, the purpose of the labyrinth is for meditation and contemplation. And you walk along this path slowly, deliberately, and you usually do it barefoot. And the idea is that you're just spending time with God, listening, being peaceful. And it was really nice. The only downside was there were a lot of us doing it at the same time, and the path is literally a foot wide in between, and so you spend a lot of time kind of negotiating like your shoulders and your hips to try to like walk as people are coming the other direction toward you on both sides, if that makes sense. Like you're kind of going in the middle, and then you'll turn around and come back.
So it's not like a one-way path then?
No, because it's kind of a loop. So you would do like what do they call those, hairpin turns as you're going around the loops. So people are following it all the way through. So I would love to do it again where it was just me. I think it would be more
your own private labyrinth of the cathedral. I'm sure that's super easy to do.
Well, if it's only open one day a week, then that makes a lot of sense if it was that crowded.
Yeah, there were a ton of people in there to do it. I didn't realize that it was only open on Fridays. Apparently, Tom had noticed that in the guidebook. And I was like, oh, how lucky that we just stumbled upon this. And he had kind of been like, we should go here on this day.
So the church itself is open more than just on Fridays. It's just on Fridays when they uncover the path.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
The path is in the middle of the floor. So during the rest of the week, they have all the chairs out for service.
Oh, okay.
So it's only on Fridays that they pull back the chairs so that you can walk the labyrinth.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We probably spent 2 hours in that cathedral. It was really beautiful. They also have stained glass. It's Gothic in style. We could kind of walk around the grounds. The other kind of unique thing about that cathedral is it's a starting point for the pilgrimage to Santiago. So some people will start there and walk the 1,000 kilometers to Santiago, Spain, as part of their pilgrimage. They have the little markers on the ground where you can start. Yeah,
I really want to do the Camino de Santiago. It sounds amazing. That's so cool.
I think it would be amazing. I think we walked 1 kilometer of it, and that might be good for me, but I think it sounds amazing. So, yeah. It was a super cute little town. We were probably there only 6 hours. It was maybe a 45-minute train ride from Paris. It's quick and easy from the Montparnasse train station. Yeah, and it was a great journey, and I would definitely recommend that as something to do for people if you have more than just a few days in Paris. It was really good. When we came back, Montparnasse train station, right next to it is Montparnasse Tower, which is the tallest thing in Paris.
Oh.
It is a tall, black office building. Yeah, it is not very attractive. Yes.
I was going to say, why did I not notice it? That's why.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of toward the side of the city. But up on the 56th floor, which is kind of the top, there's an observation windows and room, which was great. Neither Tom nor I are big fans of heights, so we did not go to the top of the Eiffel Tower nor the Arc de Triomphe.
Okay.
So this was great because it has an internal elevator that takes you up through 56 floors in about 37 seconds, and there's no way that you could fall out of the building. None of these irrational fears that those of us who are afraid of heights come up with. Yeah, and so that was really great. They talk about Montparnasse Tower. The best thing about the view is that you can't see it from inside. So they say it's the greatest view of Paris because you don't see the tower. So, and it's not that far away from
you. Yeah, I get it. Because the tower is so ugly.
Yes, exactly.
So
so if you're in it, you can't see it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's pretty close to the Eiffel Tower, so you have a really good view of the Eiffel Tower. And then you can see across to the Arc de Triomphe. We could see Sacre Coeur, Notre Dame, all that good stuff. The River Seine, of course.
Oh yeah.
So it was really fun.
Do you pay to go up it?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, you get a discount with your Rick Steves guidebook.
Oh, well,
that's
there you
another.
go.
Yeah. Sometimes these guidebooks will get you discounts to places, or you can look for things like a city pass or a museum pass. So yeah, with the discount, I think it was €15 per person.
Okay.
So a little spendy.
Yeah.
But the view was great. And they have a little cafe at the top, and
fun.
It was not overpriced, which was shocking.
Wow,
So
that is
surprising.
Yeah, so we were up there kind of at a good time, so we just enjoyed a glass of wine and walked around, looked at the view, and took pictures.
Oh, that is ugly.
Oh, did you just look it up?
I'm looking at it on Google, and it's just like you see Paris, and you can see like steeples and chapels, and then this big black thing. It like doesn't even fit the skyline.
It is ugly. It looks like some like evil villain works at the top of that or something.
Doesn't it? It's terrible.
If I saw that in
bad.
a movie and a villain worked up there, I'd be like, oh, they like CGI'd this tower into Paris. Like, I wouldn't believe it.
I know. Yeah, it definitely does not fit with the...
Oh, that's so funny.
The landscape.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, what a fun trip. Thank you so much for sharing all about it with us. So we have to ask you, with the namesake of our show, if you could take us with you to one part of your trip, to one thing that you did, what would it be and why?
I feel like everyone just needs to experience a river cruise on the River Seine. Yes, it's touristy, but it is the best way to see all of the city.
Oh, cool.
We took one that was at sunset, and that was fantastic.
Nice.
You get to see the city as the sky is kind of dimming and the buildings light up, and you got around to the Eiffel Tower right at 10 p.m. when it twinkles.
Oh, nice.
And it was just really beautiful. So I would say that for sure is the thing that you guys, that our listeners, need to do when they go to Paris. And also make sure you just have a good meal. I mean, there's so much good food in Paris.
Of course.
It's hard to go wrong.
Okay, so here's a question then. On this river cruise, was it just a cruise, or was there food on the cruise that you did?
The particular one that we opted to do was just the cruise, and they gave us a little champagne since it was sunset and that sort of thing. They do have dinner river cruises. We opted not to do them because for the price per person, which was roughly 70 to 90 euros, I would rather
so not
go,
cheap at all then. Yeah.
No, I would rather do the 15 to 20 euro cruise and then do a separate dinner, which you could easily spend 60 to 70 euros per person at dinner, but a little bit, I would think, higher quality. So we opted to separate them.
Gotcha. Oh, very
that makes
cool.
sense.
So, what's your next trip?
Oh, great question. So I'm always planning. I'm one of these people that has to have a trip in the books or I'm a little bit depressed. So
I get it.
we're trying to plan for next year. So actually, one of the things that we had hoped to do this year that fell through that we are going to try to do next year is that we're hoping to travel with Ryan and go over to the United Kingdom. So some combination of England, Scotland, Ireland, kind of taking a look at what we can do based on the time that we have.
Fun.
If that doesn't work out, I really want to take my husband to Italy. I think it's my favorite country in the world, and he has never been. So that would probably be plan B, but I'm rooting for plan A.
Oh, fun.
I mean, I'm fine with plan A.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
That's so
We just
exciting.
have to hope that I don't have to buy a new furnace next year.
Okay,
Right,
how
I
much
know.
do you really need a furnace, though? I mean, come on.
I mean, it broke in like February, and I was
Okay.
heating my house by turning on my oven and leaving the oven door open.
Okay, so what's wrong with that? You have blankets. I don't see
You're
the
right.
issue.
There's nothing unsafe about that whatsoever. Why did I just not go to the
Oh,
UK?
my
I'm a
goodness.
terrible
Exactly.
friend.
Exactly.
I'm obviously not dedicated to travel.
Or this podcast at all. So.
Or this. That's true. That's true.
Great.
Oh my goodness. Well, Serena, do you have any travel questions for us?
Oh, so I did think of one. I'm curious for both of you. What is something or a couple of things that you tend to save on, and what are a couple things that you tend to splurge on?
Oh, that's a good
It's
question.
a very good question.
Well, I think I'm going to be the opposite of Cheryl on this one.
Probably.
I tend to save on food.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, like I'll especially for lunch, I'll just like pop into a grocery store and buy something from the equivalent of their deli or whatever, and just kind of munch on that, and like that'll be it, if I can help it, and I don't want to spend lots and lots of money on food. So that's definitely something I would save on. I don't think Cheryl would probably
Perfect.
say that same thing.
No.
I don't know about splurge. Cheryl, you can share what while I think about what I would splurge on.
Okay, well, one thing I like to splurge on is food. And my favorite way to splurge on food is through doing a food tour. Serena, have you ever done a food tour before?
Oh, nice. No, I did a cooking class once, and I've
Okay.
done like a do-it-yourself like
Okay.
food hop, but I've never done
I think
a tour.
you should do a food tour the next time you travel somewhere. And actually,
Yes.
Seattle also has food tours. Ryan and I will probably do one with a group of people at some point, so we can report on it for this podcast. You know,
Yeah,
and so
that's the only reason.
yeah, we'll invite you to come with us because I'm sure you would love it. Because I think we're pretty similar
totally.
travelers, and so but yeah, I got to do a food tour in Rome, and that was wonderful. And then I am going to be doing a food tour in Barcelona, and they're not cheap. They're not crazy expensive or anything, but I mean, I think this one was like 80 or 90 euros. So it's like, that's a chunk of money for sure. And I don't even like tours normally. So normally I wouldn't, I guess that'd be something I would save on, is I don't want to pay for a tour. Normally I'd rather just go do my own thing. But yeah, with a food tour, it's like the right type of tour for me, very unassuming. But yeah, so I'd say food. I don't eat at like super fancy places, but I love to like try all of the local cuisine. So I definitely want to like eat good food while I'm traveling. Ryan, did you figure out your splurge?
I don't. It's hard. Like I tend to be fairly frugal just in general. Mm-hmm. So I don't tend to. No. I know what my splurge thing is. No, and this is a new splurge thing that has just been within the last year or two. I will splurge on my plane ticket. I will upgrade to premium economy. I will pay more for more legroom because I have long legs, and being on that flight for 8 to 10 hours, which I've done so many times, having that extra legroom and the additional tilt back in the plane seat, that's an area I will spend a couple extra $100 for more legroom.
Wow.
I totally thought you would say that, Ryan. And you were actually the one who clued us into that, because we last year were like, oh, I don't know if we should do that. You know, it's $150. And you're like, is it worth $15 an hour for extra leg room?
Ooh,
and when we thought about it that way,
it
was like, yes, it is definitely worth it.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yep.
That's something
not
I
nearly
wouldn't-
as exciting
yeah.
of like the cities, but
comfort, that's good too. Yeah.
Yes.
I would say I
Yeah.
save also on like in general transportation. Not always. I mean, I like trains over buses, so I guess sometimes that's more expensive. But I love to walk. I love a lot of walking, and I love walking through cities. And so there's both kind of I know public transportation is not expensive. I will not like rent a car or anything like that. I love public transit or walking, and so that's something but I even don't mind taking the time of walking a lot of the time. And so yeah, that's kind of probably a way that I'm like, yeah, just walk there and then you're spending $0. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. All right. Well,
it's time for the segment that we like to call Wish You Were Here. So what we're going to do now is each of the three of us is going to highlight an attraction or a spot or a something from all of our travels, and between the three of us, we've probably been a lot of places. So each of us is going to just mention one little attraction that we wish maybe we were there or that you were there, and if you have a chance to go, we would highly recommend it. So, Cheryl, do you want to start?
Sure. So the one I'd like to talk about today is the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. So there's, obviously when we think about Disney, you think about like Southern California or Florida when it comes to the United States. But in San Francisco, there's a really fun museum. The only downside to it is after you go there, it's very difficult that you're not in Disneyland right then, but it's a really fun museum. There's all sorts of like original drawings there and artwork and some of like the awards that Disney won, and shows like some of the old ways they did animation, and then there's all this fun stuff about the park as well, and there's like a miniature replica is not the right word. What's the right word? A model of the park of Disneyland? Yeah. Is that what you call it? Yeah. And
like
so
a
it's
scale
like
model.
a 3D scale model of Disneyland from years ago too. So you can see, so like I probably spent just like 30 minutes just looking at this model of Disneyland. And
because you know Disneyland so well that you would know the things that are different.
Yeah. And just being like, oh, that's right. They used to have the people mover and like all of these things. And then just wishing I was at Disneyland. But it was just, it's a really fun museum. And yeah, there's even a fun photo op where there's like a black and white Disney. He's like leaning, and if you stand in the right spot, it looks like he's like leaning on your shoulder. So I have a fun little picture with Disney. Yeah. But yeah, I would totally recommend it if you're in San Francisco. It is, it's like in the city, but like on the edge of the city. And so, but yeah, so parking's easy there, which is also wonderful. But
that's nice.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Awesome.
Serena,
really what's
sure.
What's your wish you were here?
So today I'll talk about Notre Dame, but a different one. So again, on with the church theme. So this is the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal, in Quebec, Canada. And the reason I want to mention it is that they currently have a light show experience in the cathedral that is just incredible. So it's called Aura, A-U-R-A, and it is just amazing. So the cathedral is entirely dark on the inside when you go in, except they have all of this detailed light that outlines the painting and the artwork and the icons that they have in the cathedral. And you can walk around and kind of interact with them as the light and the music changes on these paintings. And then they come have you sit down in the seats, and they do light and sound show for about 15 minutes. I don't even know how to describe it. You'll have to go to the website and watch the video, but it is just incredible. And that was absolutely a highlight when we went to Montreal. And it's, I think, great for anybody. It was a fantastic experience.
Oh,
so
fun.
yeah, Ara at Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal, Canada.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Next time I get up to Canada, I'll have to check it out.
Yes.
All right. And then for me, I'm going to go to the other side of the world, and I'm going to recommend the Sydney Aquarium in Sydney, Australia. I loved it. I took a group of students to Australia. We went for a total solar eclipse, but when we were in Sydney, this was not something that we did as a part of like a tour group. This was our kind of extra day at the end, and I was like, well, I want to go to the aquarium. Anyone who wants to come with me can come with me, but I'm going to the aquarium. And I think most of our group ended up going.
Oh, cool.
And I may have been the last one out at the end. It was just so cool. And I mean, I've been to a lot of aquariums. You know, Seattle has an aquarium, which is a fine aquarium. I've been to the Monterey Aquarium in Monterey in Northern California and stuff. But this aquarium had some really cool things. Like one of the things that it had relatively early on is it had duck-billed platypuses.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
And I didn't realize how tiny they were. They're like,
Wait, how big are they?
I don't know, like 6-8 inches.
What?
Yeah, they're
Oh.
teeny.
I thought they were like several feet big.
I did too.
Yeah.
At least these ones were not. And when they're in the water, they seriously are the cutest thing ever. They wiggle back and forth as they go. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Oh
it was
my
just
goodness.
They were awesome. And then they had this big giant spider crab that like is probably at least 6 feet long with like all of its like extended huge spider like legs. And they had sharks and manta rays, and you could like walk under, and a lot of aquariums have this now, but you can like walk through the tube and you can go underneath, where they can swim over you. And it was gorgeous. Oh, and they had dugongs. Right?
It's
What
like
is that?
It's like a manatee, but it's the Australian.
I love
It's the Australian equivalent of a manatee. And it's just like, so they had these things that were, of course, like indigenous to Australia and more tropical, like that sort of area. And then it was the best aquarium I've ever been to, in my opinion. So if you like aquariums and you ever end up in
wish
Sydney,
I'd been filming my screen though, because seeing you imitate a
Yes.
platypus swimming was really good.
That's worth it.
I can see if I can try, and I took a video of it when I was there. I can see if I can try and find it and post it to our Instagram. I don't know if that'll work, but I can try.
You can. I believe in you.
Oh, I can do anything I put my mind to.
Yeah, as long as it's
That's
within
right.
1 minute, because I think that's the length of Instagram videos. So.
Oh, well,
True.
okay then.
True.
So, wish you were there.
Oh, man. How fun. Well, Serena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thanks, Serena.
So great to have
Yeah,
you.
of
And we'll definitely
course.
have to have you back to talk about more of your travel stories in the future.
Sure. I've got lots of trips under my belt. I'm happy
wonderful.
to chat. It was so fun to chat with you guys.
Yay.
One of the other things that's cool is that we're also going to have Serena's husband, Tom, on the podcast as well and get his take on the exact same trip, which I think will be kind of a cool way to kind of find a little bit more out about your travel style and some of that sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be next
I'm
week.
looking forward to it too.
Yay.
And if you'd like to try and see that platypus video, if I can get it to post, or you'd like to follow us on social media, you can follow us at TimWee Podcast. That's TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. So we'd love to have you follow us. Or if you're going on a trip somewhere and you want to say, hey, take us with you, and we'd love to see your pictures as well, just tag us at TimWee Podcast.
Yeah, you can also email us at timweepodcast@gmail.com and send us questions or suggestions of things to talk about or future guest ideas. So send us an email there.
You also have the option to call us. You can give us a call at 406-POD-TIMWY, PODTMWY, or if you want the actual numbers, that's 406-763-8699. You can give us a call and leave us a voicemail, or you can even text us something. Same thing, you can leave us suggestions or comments or questions, topics you'd like us to cover, any of those things. We'd love to hear from our listeners. You could also rate and review us on iTunes or any other podcast rating available technology that you have access to, and we'd love to get that feedback from you as well.
We also want to say a special thank you to Beth Morrell for our artwork. You can check her out at Beth Is Something.
Thanks, Beth. All right, that's it for this episode of Take Me With You. We are going to talk next, like we said, with Serena's husband, Tom. So join us next week to hear another perspective on the exact same trip. But until next time, please make sure to take me with you.
Take me with you.